Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 14th of April. It's game day, of course, and what a game we have in store later on at Ibrox this evening. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined by Joshua Barrie, back from his holiday. Joshua, how are we getting on?
Good, Derek. Yep, rested up. Looking forward to the game tonight, but good to be back. Feel like I've been away for a long time, but in the world of football, I think it's only been 2 games. But as we know, football moves very quickly, Derek. So looking forward to being back, catching up, and hopefully a historic night at Ibrox tonight.
Yeah, well, your return to the show will be much welcomed by a number of people who are getting in touch, Joshua, who were really missing your presence on the morning briefing. So I'm sure you've made their morning, that's for sure. Before we look at tonight's game, folks, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you just hit that subscribe button, it means you'll never miss a video when we go live. And thousands of you are now doing so. So thanks very much for that. And as you can see in the little ticker below, we've still got that tremendous offer on the Rangers Review site just now, just £1 for 2 months worth of content. And not only that, you get entered into a prize draw for a tour of Ibrox 4-4 with a club legend as well. So it really is a fantastic deal. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. And I'll put the link in the comment section as well, just so ease of access. You can just click on that and I'll take you through to the page. Okay, let's talk Rangers then, Joshua. It's the biggest match at Ibrox in terms of Europe. Probably the biggest match at Ibrox for 14 years since the last UEFA Cup run to Manchester. A huge prize at stake, semi-finals of the Europa League. Doesn't get any bigger than this for Rangers. They've been absolutely exceptional in Europe this season. Domestically, of course, not so much so, but in Europe, they really have been a cut above. And tonight, obviously, going into this game, a goal behind. What's the feeling like at the moment, Joshua? Do you think that they've got the tools in the camp to overcome that one goal deficit?
Well, it's amazing what a positive second half against St Mirren can do, isn't it, Derek? Because I think that, St Mirren, I don't think are a great side, and watching that game back confirms that. But Rangers have struggled in those games all season, so I don't think it hurts to have a kind of comfortable domestic performance going into this. And the amazing thing is, regardless of the fact that the last Old Firm effectively rendered the league null and void for Rangers, unless there's a bit of a miracle. And the performance in Braga, as you will know, wasn't great. Tonight, there's still the opportunity for these group of players to go and make history. And I listened to James Tavernier speaking on Rangers TV yesterday, and just about how much of this group of players want to go and make the semi-final naturally. But it's an absolutely huge opportunity, Derek. And I think the kind of main point for me is these players have had a lot of opportunities recently this season. You think back to the Hibs semi-final, you think of the game at Parkhead recently, you think of the game at Ibrox, where they haven't really raised, they haven't met their level, have they? But in Europe, they've tended to do so. And I think watching the game back last week, and we can get into this, I don't think Braga are as good a side as they were 2 years ago. I think Rangers have beaten better sides to get to this stage of the competition. So it's all set up, but you still need to go and have a really good performance. It's still a European quarter-final, and this team still haven't had a great season, as you say. And the inconsistency, I think, is definitely a factor because you don't really know how they're going to play tonight. So it's a huge opportunity, a chance to get to a semi-final, and if that doesn't get the players up, nothing will. But based on their kind of previous European performances, Derek, I think we all know that they'll be right up for this one as soon as the Europa League music starts.
Yeah, you obviously watched the first leg on television, Joshua. What's your main takeaways from that game? Do you think there was enough in that to see that Rangers can be a lot better than what they produced in Braga? And do you think we maybe seen the best of Braga last week?
I don't know. I mean, I was watching back some of it again this morning. I just put a tweet out there looking at how regularly Braga switched play or played long over the top nearly 100 times, and just how much they tried to move Rangers. And you see the goal come from that, because Rangers don't have that same compactness they had under Gerrard. And obviously Bassey and Kent kind of get caught in between their two men as the goal, where the goal originates from the right. I mean, I think Rangers, we were just speaking before we came on air, they had some decent moments kind of approaching the goal. I think they were still adjusting to playing without Morelos, and that's obviously a huge factor. But at home, it's a completely different story, especially when you need to go and chase a lead. I don't think they'll sit off Braga nearly as much. And I think what you'll see, hopefully, is the Braga wing-backs getting pushed back instead of the Braga wing-backs pushing back Rangers wingers. So instead of Kent having to do a lot of defensive work, you'll hopefully see the Braga wing-backs getting pushed back. And what I think has worked really well in these home games against Red Star and Dortmund, and I guess going back to the final group stage game against Sparta Prague as well, is the energy from the off from Rangers to swarm their opponents, to win individual battles. I think players like John Lundstrom are so important in this game, and will be absolutely crucial tonight. So Rangers have beaten better teams to get here, Derek. I think they beat a better Braga team 2 years ago. You look at the individuals that Braga had in that team, players like Trincao, obviously at Barcelona, I think now on loan at Wolves. The opportunity is there for them. I think that's all you can say. Braga are obviously a good team. Carlos Carvajal said, I think yesterday, they're coming to win. They don't want to risk the draw. That might suit Rangers even better. Definitely winnable. I guess it depends how the players apply themselves and how Braga work with their game plan, because they do have a lead, and obviously that is a big advantage. If they were to get the first goal, it would be quite detrimental, I think. But given there's no away goals, that certainly plays in Rangers' favour in this situation tonight.
Yeah, most definitely. So many comments coming in, Joshua, with regards to possible team selection for tonight. We'll get to some of those comments. I wanted to touch on this one from Peter Lawrence. I know you're a big fan of Amad Diallo, Joshua. He says, do you think Diallo should be given a chance tonight due to his attacking threat? I can't see him starting the game. Perhaps if Rangers need a goal late on, I can see him certainly being introduced, as we've seen on Sunday. But for me, no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've spoken about this a lot, Diallo, and when he came in. I think the wider question is, you look at that kind of broad. Van Bronckhorst has kind of used two broad structures since he's come into the club, and he obviously at the weekend you see a return to some of Gerrard's principles with the narrow wingers, with the full-backs involved. But I think the Rangers look better domestically when they have two things. One, when they have the numbers to get the ball forward. So against St Mirren, you obviously have Stephen Davis and James Sands in that second half up at Dundee. Makes it a more comfortable game. And then when you get the fullbacks forwards, I just think that Rangers look a far more cohesive attacking unit. And I think up at Ross County in that 3-3 game, which feels like quite a linchpin for the season because of that late goal conceded, you did see a bit of a template with Barisic in the team for how Rangers could play if they had a good solid option on the right. And I think one of the issues domestically, not in Europe, because I think in Europe it's worked with playing in our fields in that position, certainly at home games, and home games are away at Dortmund. But domestically, I think Rangers have really lacked having someone on the right. And Diallo maybe could have been that, but obviously you've got to look at the situation and see the coaching staff either don't think he's got the application, don't want to chuck him in for whatever reason. I thought he did okay when he came on at the weekend, but I don't see him being chucked in at this stage. I think you'll probably see an Aaron Ramsey and Joe Aribo maybe in the centre and on the right, as they were against Celtic recently, and they'll switch regularly. With Diallo, I do think it could have worked, but it obviously hasn't. And sometimes you've just got to look at it and say it was a failed experiment. I know Gary Cormody wrote about that on the site this week. That right wing position has been, well, it's not really had a real taker for a number of years now, Derek, has it? And certainly in the summer, that's a needs must address position, because it limits Rangers not having someone there. And in saying that, I thought Scott Wright did okay when he came on at the weekend, and that's what I think Scott Wright gives you. I don't think he gives you the dependability like a Ryan Kent week in, week out, to perform well and make an impact. But I think in certain games and in certain aspects of games, his pace and his directness can be a useful addition in the squad, as it was over the Christmas periods. But summertime, that's definitely we'll definitely have a week's podcast series on that in the summer break, the Rangers right wing position.
I love this comment from Scott Swilder. Can we register John Brown and Ian Ferguson before kickoff? I would absolutely love if they had a Brown and Fergie before for this game. That's for sure. It's certainly a game that players need to step up. And we've seen Atletico Madrid taking it to the extremes last night against Manchester City, but Rangers need a bit of that. They have been accused in the past of being a bit too nice, but I think it's a night really to step up to the plate and show what they're made of, and make sure they're in the last four. Some other interesting comments coming in here, Joshua. Sam Moylan says Ramsey Jack and Davis have got to start for him, with Roof up front and Kent and Aribo out wide, given a free to roam pass. What do you make of that? Firstly, I mean, that midfield, Ramsey, Jack and Davis. Davis, of course, came back into the side on Sunday. That was due to the groin strain picked up by John Lundstrom. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst did say yesterday that he should be back in contention for tonight's game. Would you be tempted to start Stephen Davis in this one?
I think you've seen with Davis in that game, you know, how good a player he is, and obviously that's not a surprise to anyone, but especially in games where you require a lot of I think intelligence in your midfielder who's trying to drop into the right positions. I thought James Sands did this well as well. Drop into the right positions, escape from pressure, all these things. I thought Davis did that really well. And I don't think Lundstrom in a game like that, you know, you think back to the Dundee United game, 1-0 just before Christmas, where Lundstrom couldn't get on the ball at all. I don't think that's his game. I think he can do it in more combative Premiership games, but he's certainly not the kind of orchestrator that Stephen Davis is. But I don't think you need that as much in Europe. You know, you have Jack and Lundstrom together. I think you've seen in Dortmund how well they can play out. I think Lundstrom's very neat and tidy with his feet, and almost is better when there's a lot of pressure on him because there's more space to play into instead of having to break down opponents. And obviously, I just think, you know, you've seen time and time again this season, the results haven't always followed with the team, which has perhaps undermined some of his individual performances. But Lundstrom is what Rangers needed in these games last season. He can give you physicality and individualism in the middle of the pitch. He'll win his duels. He can drive with the ball. So, you know, if you have a time machine and go back a couple of months, I think there's a lot of lessons that Van Bronckhorst has now probably learned that he'd put into place, which is, you know, bring Kemar Roof on against Dundee United when you're chasing a goal, and in some other games, play Stephen Davis when you're struggling to break teams down. But I think one of the lessons he has learned is that Jack Lundstrom midfield base is really useful and probably the best option at the moment. You know, and then it's interesting, isn't it, Derek? Because you think of Jack and Kamara and Davis last season playing that kind of role, the double pivot role in the Premiership, and now they're not in the kind of starting 11 or not always in the starting 11 conversation. So it's interesting how football works. But I certainly think what Jack and Lundstrom gives you is quite unique there. In saying that, I think Jack's looked a little bit jaded recently, which I think is natural given that he hit the ground running with such aplomb really after that long injury layoff. So maybe it is a game where you put Stephen Davis in or Glenn Kamara. But I think you've also got to try and read between the lines and think, why hasn't Stephen Davis played? Is it because, you know, this system that Van Bronckhorst often uses, he likes to do a man-for-man marking system more often than not, instead of the more compact system that Gerrard used, which moved with the ball and had more players around each individual player. It's more individual battles, which I think suits the likes of Jack and Lundstrom, and probably would, you know, if you put Stephen Davis in that game at Braga, I think you would see his pace isolated a little bit. You remember, I think, for the first goal, when Lundstrom's dropping into the back line, it's him, the ball goes over the top of, and he has to chase back in. So different game. I think Lundstrom will be suited for this one tonight, and I think that's probably that man-for-man option defensively, and obviously Lundstrom's flexibility to go into the back line. I think that's why he's played so predominantly in these big games.
Yeah, although I do like John Dooley's comment. What I really like about Davis is that he defends the post at corners. Yes, he does. And he's certainly one of his key attributes for Stephen Davis. I've lost count the amount of balls he's cleared off the line that look certain goals. So, it'll be interesting to see if he gets the nod tonight, but certainly a real good player to bring off the bench if Rangers need be. Another comment coming in here with regards to I want to bring this up from Ross Joshua with regards to Calvin Bassey at centre-back and play Bonner at left-back. It would be hard to drop Bassey, but would like to see Bonner. However, I think we need Balogun for set pieces. Now, this ties in with a piece I wrote on the website yesterday, why I feel Bonner Barisic should get the nod at left-back tonight. Now, that's not to say Calvin Bassey can't start the game, maybe as a part of a back three, or in a back four. It's a toss-up between him or Balogun, I feel. Where do you sit on this? First of all, would you start Bonner Barisic at left-back?
It was funny seeing him come back in and just look, you know, the most confident he's ever looked in his life. And that's just quintessential Bonner Barisic, isn't it? Whereby he sometimes just looks like a player who does not want to pass the football. And and sometimes looks like it just does not make a wrong decision, and it's hilarious. But it was also great to, on a positive note, it was great to see him return to form, because if Rangers are to have a successful season, I think that option is important, especially with Helander obviously having that disappointing injury news. But I think Ross makes a really good point about set pieces. It's something we forget quite a lot, I think, when we speak about team selection. Comes into play with the Rebo, who obviously at the front post at corners offensively is a big part of any sort of plan that Rangers have to score against the opposition. And obviously with Balogun into defensive set pieces as well, that's important. We all know for all of Calvin Bassey's attributes, heading the ball is not really one of them, is it? No. So, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about it this morning. I thought Liam King as well is worth mentioning, just because I've not said it yet. Was excellent, really good on the ball as well. But I think whoever he goes for, the real positive is that he has the option probably now for the rest of the season to go for both, because you probably are going to have to play Bassey back in the centre of defence, unless he just sticks with King domestically. But that would be a big shout to do that ahead of Sunday's game. Bassey, as we've said before, I think over a period of time, there was a bit of revisionism about him and centre back. I think you look at games like Dortmund, where his recovery pace and on the ball he was fantastic, and he definitely can do that role without nervous glances at the stadium before kick-off, thinking there's Calvin Bassey at centre back. So I wouldn't be concerned about either tonight. But I think Ross makes a good point. I think set pieces will probably be quite a dictating factor in whatever decision the manager makes tonight. And hopefully you see Borna Barisic on a different note have a few more good individual performances before the end of the season, because he's such a weapon on that left flank. You see that ball he played to Roof, which Roof almost caught onto, that Shaughnessy just kind of cut out. Those type of passes I think are quite rare for a left back to find. So good to see him have that type of individual performance. And Barisic now will have the best 2 months of his life before having a terrible pre-season, won't he?
Yeah, listen, it's an interesting one, and the comment coming in there from Curry Muncher, it is fair. He's had a poor season, like many this season, Borna Barisic, but just feel if Rangers can get the Borna Barisic that we all know he can play with those deliveries from the left-hand side, I think they could be absolutely vital this evening, with Kemar Roof likely to start up front, Joshua. Now, of course, we've seen Fashion Sakala lead the line in Braga. Didn't quite work. I think the Braga defenders had him in their back pocket. If they start Kemar Roof, which I imagine they would do, given he scored 3 at the weekend, looked sharp. Rangers need goals. Rangers need to get service into him. Now, the balls into him on Sunday were divine. He feeds off that. If you supply the service, he will deliver. And he made a joke about it to Rangers TV afterwards, saying it was about time they got decent balls into him. So the onus is on the likes of Tavernier, whoever's going to be playing on the left-hand side, either Bassey or Barisic, Aribo, Ramsey, to get the balls into him. And would you have full confidence in Roof if chances are presented? He's not going to have as many opportunities as he did on Sunday, of course, in Paisley, but you'd put your money on him. If he gets one, he'll certainly tuck it away.
Well, we were speaking a minute ago about Van Bronckhorst kind of learning some of the lessons that Gerrard did, maybe in some ways, in terms of playing his wide wingers and how he uses them. And I don't think it's a coincidence that at the weekend you've seen the likes of Kent, Sakala, Wright, Aribo, all those players tuck in and play narrower, and pinched inside and play more akin to number 10s than wingers, and Roof played better. His two headers aren't, I think, a direct correlation of that. But I think you just seen with his link-up play, he was closer to players. He wasn't as isolated in the same way that you'll remember, Derek, when Jermaine Defoe came into the team, couldn't replace Alfredo Morelos because Alfredo Morelos is such an individual and has such unique qualities. So what did Rangers do? Well, they moved players closer to him, and that made him play better because he wasn't as isolated on the pitch, just as we were speaking a second ago about the same with Stephen Davis in that midfield. So it was great to see him do that. No surprise to see Kemar Roof make that type of movement in the box. I kind of found it frustrating, I won't lie, because you think of the games he could have made an impact in earlier in the season, especially that Dundee United game, which I just think, given where the title race was at that time, it just seems mental that Roof wasn't brought off the bench. But Rangers, again, whether they play a kind of similar system as they did against St Mirren, where they bring Kent inside a little bit more. I think that works well in Europe because he's got more space centrally. You're obviously not playing against as compact a team. Whether it's Ramsey that gets close to him, you just can't isolate him and play into his feet as they did in the old firm. So that'll be the key thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Johnny McFarlane might be making a substitute appearance here. There he is.
Hello.
The night shift has arrived. How are we getting on, Johnny?
I was actually just coming on to speak to you once you finished, but seeing you called me out like a WWE character emerging to the music in the background.
It's great to have you on. Yeah. What's the feeling tonight, Johnny? Do you feel that Rangers can do the business and overturn this 1-goal deficit?
I am really, and this should worry everyone. Everyone in the comments should be very concerned. I am incredibly confident about tonight. I don't know where this is coming from. I've got no worries. Normally I'm very negative about every game. It doesn't matter if it's Dundee, Ross County, Cowdenbeath. I've just got concerns. Yeah, I've got about the same impact level as Diallo as well, Union 1872, unfortunately. But no, I'm not concerned. And I don't know, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Probably a bad thing. I didn't have any concerns about the first leg, so
yeah. Well, I've got to say I'm slightly nervous for this one. Just I think because of the magnitude of the game. I think to think of Rangers in the semi-finals of the Europa League is quite incredible. The curry muncher getting in touch there. Yeah, I don't share your confidence levels so far, Johnny. I'm sure as we get near to kick-off, then I'll get more hyped up and there'll be more belief amongst myself and a number of supporters. But yeah, before we go then folks, let's get a score prediction. Joshua, are Rangers going to do it? What's it going to end up tonight?
I'm not quite as confident as Johnny, but I think you've got to be optimistic. You know, it's the opportunity to get into the last four of Europe. This team tends to do well in Europe, as we know. So I will say 2-0 for me, Ruth, and Arrigo. Let's go left field, Arrigo.
Wow. Johnny?
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Rangers with a double from McCoist and Hateley with the third. I think I'll be 3-1. I'm not thinking McCoist and Hateley though. I'm not going to predict scorers, but I've just got a really good feeling about tonight. I don't think Braga have the experience in their team. If Ibrox is the way we know it can be, I remember, how could you forget, walking through the bowels of the stadium from the press room up to the press box before the Dortmund game, just turning to Josh and saying, "Oof, they're in the mood tonight." If it's that kind of atmosphere, there's so many youngsters in that Braga team, I don't think they're going to be able to cope with it. So, yeah, I'm thinking 3-1, not a problem.
Yeah, a lot of folks saying it might go to penalties tonight. I don't know if my heart would deal with that. I think the last time Rangers were in penalties was Fiorentina, I'm sure, in the UEFA Cup. Of course, it ended well on that night. But yeah, it'll be quite a night at Ibrox tonight. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Rangers. A nervy game, but I think they'll do it in the end, and hopefully they'll be booking their place in the semi-finals of the Europa League, which should be an absolutely magnificent achievement for the club. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks very much for all the comments coming in and all the interaction. It's very much appreciated. And if you've not taken advantage of our great deal on the site just now, just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. Just £1 for 2 months worth of content. And not only that, you get entered into a prize draw for a tour of Ibrox for 4 by a club legend as well. It really is a fantastic deal. We're away now. Hopefully you enjoy the game this evening. Hope your team wins, and we'll be back again tomorrow.